Can fashion save lives? Sounds a bit ridiculous, doesn't it? The idea of fashion saving lives. I mean, sure, intentional design or safety in clothing. Where do we see that in our world? Well, we know it exists in firefighter and army uniforms, construction attire. Even astronaut suits are considered as articles of clothing. Now, that's something probably no one in this room has ever seen or felt in person, but we know that there's a lot of attention to detail there, right? You have the gloves that latch into the arms, this big helmet that comes on, all these very important gadgets. Now, that's one piece of clothing where if anything goes wrong, it can become life-threatening. Same goes for police uniforms. We've all seen those. Everything is very intentional with police uniforms, or uniforms in general, really. Like, where in the body is it the best place to keep your gun? How quick can you access it? How you can get off the handcuffs or talk to your buddy on the radio. It's all been very much thought through. Intentional design basically ends there, only applying to these high-risk job situations. It sometimes pervades into the mass market, and there are some new consumer brands that are very much interested in how we interact with our clothing. But humanitarian application for intentionally designed clothing is ultimately non-existent. We see homeless on the streets daily in pants not meant for sleeping on city sidewalks. We see refugees fleeing in branded t-shirts and jeans, which of course makes sense because if we all had to leave right now, we would be stuck in whatever clothes we decided to put on this morning. But even the donated clothes are just more of the same. Just trend-focused clothing that other people don't want hanging up in their closets anymore. And unfortunately, when it comes to disaster relief, stylish but ultimately useless clothes are the vast majority of items that are donated. And while there always seems to be a steady stream of donations, the clothes aren't always meeting the need and are often causing a myriad of other issues within crisis. For example, noisy or vibrant clothing bringing attention to people who are trying to flee undetected, dark or unrecognizable clothing creating danger when traveling on unlit roads or across water, water-absorbing clothing that adds weight and discomfort, clothing that is not responsive to climate resulting in illness, not to mention just the overall ease and functionality of the garments. For example, if you're traveling with something very important, you'd want to keep it close to you at all times. If you're traveling with a lot, you'd want to have at least several pockets to put things in, so that way you can distribute the weight. When I was in Greece, I was visiting refugee camps, and I witnessed volunteers passing out spring jackets for winter because that was all they had. I watched as children were running around in the cold of November in adult-sized flip-flops, occasionally taking them off so that they could play jump rope without tripping. Mismatched shoes and bins at warehouses where there was surprisingly even an inventory of Halloween costumes. Clothing is being given out for the wrong sizes, for the wrong seasons, for the wrong purposes, with visible wears and stains. What is needed is clothing that goes back to the original purpose of clothing, a sort of clothing for crisis, if you will, where form should follow function. Design should be user-centered and solution-based, made to solve problems, not create more. Clothing should be sizeless, adaptable to any body type, and seasonless, able to be in any environment. And most importantly, clothing should not be related to the cause of death for anyone. It's funny how quickly we forget that clothing is a key necessity for life in our expanded environments, and yet the fashion industry doesn't feel the compulsion to provide for those who still rely on it for survival. So then why isn't clothing viewed as a way to provide relief for global issues? I am a solution-based fashion designer, which means that I understand the true value our clothing can provide. I founded the humanitarian outerwear brand, edin, that is using design to intentionally assist refugees and homeless. Our goal is to utilize the fashion industry to create aid and awareness for global displacement. Now, this is inherently controversial because fashion, as we know it, doesn't deal in the realm of politics or global issues, right? Of course not. Fashion, as we know it, is useless. When I say the word fashion, what comes to mind? Let's see. Runways, luxury, models, red carpets, and Fifth Avenue. Something frivolous, superficial, unimportant, and expensive. Not to mention wasteful. After all, fashion is the second most polluting industry in the world, just behind oil. It is also the only industry that can tell you not to wear that perfectly good jacket hanging up in your closet because it is out of fashion. Fashion has widely been considered as detached from global concerns or maybe even above them. Most designers or runway shows don't call our society or our practices into question. They don't offer proposals or solutions to deal with the real issues in our world. They deal with kind of ridiculous abstract concepts like clouds, or in this case, flying first class at an airport. And if I'm being quite blunt, I couldn't give a shit about any of this. It's a waste of time, money, resources, and space. It's merely a distraction from the real issues of our world, further highlighting the economic gaps between those who have money and those who don't. I'm not here today to convince you all that fashion isn't all of these things. It is. But it doesn't have to be. Obviously, this sense of the industry can't save lives, but it's not my focus. I believe that intentionally designed clothing can create solutions and deliver aid, that fashion can be used to create awareness and solidarity, and that it truly should be considered as an asset. Which brings us back to that first question. Can fashion save lives? Absolutely. I bet you wouldn't guess that this tent is my jacket for today. This jacket is one of 7 that I designed in reaction to the refugee crisis. The collection responds to the need for shelter, for sleep, relocation, the need to be seen one second and hide the next, the need to travel safely on water, the risks of traveling with young children, and the overall need for durable, warm clothing. Using intentional design to reduce risk, I created a series of jackets that can transform into tents, a sleeping bag, or a backpack, as well as jackets equipped for carrying children, flotation, and invisibility. All of our clothes are weather and waterproof, unisex, one size, and are prepared to be worn in numerous environments. I originally launched this project with the sole intention just to donate these products. But then I learned that average people were interested in purchasing these garments and using them for outdoor recreation. It was then that I realized the potential to utilize the fashion industry to create aid and awareness about this crisis. So then we transitioned this from just a project into a brand. We operate by selling our jackets within the outdoor fashion industry to consumers, and for every jacket purchased, we then donate to refugees and homeless worldwide. Our mission is really to create a sustainable model for impact that allows us to continue to donate product without having to rely on government or nonprofit grants. So these jackets have been tested in refugee camps and received overwhelmingly positive feedback. The garments generated such excitement as little girls ran from tent to tent telling their neighbors to come outside and try on these amazing jackets. At each camp we visited, it became all the more obvious just how necessary these garments were in facilitating the lives for these people and making it a little bit safer. In addition to meeting that functional need, it was also surprising to see what a beneficial effect they had on the morale of everyone at the camp. Part of the reason why I think it was such a success was because it allowed these people to escape through their current situation through something so light as fashion. It was very interesting for me to see how this lightness, this frivolity, could be used as a positive, not a negative. The entire experience really enlightened me as to how universally uplifting fashion can be when it's used for good. Which brings me to my final point. Fashion can save lives in other ways, not just with transformable jackets. One key thing about clothing is that it's something that we all interact with on a daily basis. Let me just take a look right now and see if anyone here is not wearing any clothes. No, I don't think so. Fashion and clothing are built into our society. Clothing may be able to help in daily issues and maybe even save lives in dire circumstances, but it's not capable of creating immigration reform or redirecting money towards affordable housing. Only the people can do that. If we're able to successfully hack the fashion system and use it as a vehicle for creating awareness, then fashion can become much more important in playing a role in global issues as a whole. We envision fashion as a movement, as an opportunity to get people to pay attention to what's most important through a medium that hasn't been oversaturated with messaging. By opening up our products to customers, we're looking to create awareness through the medium of clothing. You're much less likely to forget about the needs of refugees or homeless if you have a jacket hanging up in your closet as a constant reminder of the daily issues that they face. And when you put that jacket on, you're telling that story. You're sharing this message to the world. The shift in using clothing for messaging has already started, but it needs to be pushed even further because awareness and understanding are truly our greatest weapons for change. You can shut off the news, turn off the radio, or close your eyes as you walk past newsstands, but you can't really avoid clothing. What we wear sends a message, so really think about what you want that message to be. Do you want your clothes to be produced responsibly, ethically? Do you want them to tell a story? What does that say? We need to act intentionally with what we wear and really integrate fashion with what's actually going on in the world. And it starts here. It starts with you. Every time we put something on, we need to know why we're wearing it and what we hope for it to accomplish. After all, clothing is a tool, and fashion is just what we make of it. So now, what about this tent jacket? I'm sure you guys are very, very curious. We're going to do a little transformation here. Step 1, take out the poles. These poles are made from a very durable fiberglass, very lightweight as well, and can be easily collapsed and stored within the jacket or by creating a bag from the base. One down. I normally kick off my heels when I'm doing this, but I'll stay formal for you guys. This is a reflective piping that we have as pole channels to increase visibility. Pole number 2. Next step is to take off the base of the tent, which does become that bag. And these are all water-resistant, waterproof zippers, perfect for keeping out the elements. This is the least exciting part. This is where I roll up the bag. Whoop. So then the poles go right in here. You can also store anything else you want to keep safe in this bag. It has a very simple loop closure. And we just knot it through. And then you can tie the straps to be any length that you like. I normally like to have it as a cross body. All right, so now this jacket. So now I'm opening up the side of the tent, which actually becomes the center front. And what would a jacket be if it didn't have any sleeves? So let's get those out. All right. And we can even open up the front door of the tent to make a scarf and a hood. All right, what do you guys think? Thank you very much.